And you made a comment about the people who won't give their guns back or who will carry no matter what. Those people are called gangbangers. They're going to carry with a FOID card, without a FOID card. It doesn't matter.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's no demonstrations from the audience, please.
I'm referring to the people who stood up at this meeting, identified themselves as members of the National Rifle Association or Illinois Carry or the State Rifle Association, and said that they have a God-given right, not just a constitutional right, to defend themselves by whatever means to carry guns, and that even if this body put in regulations, that they would, as a philosophical matter, insist on the right to carry guns. We're not just talking about gangbangers, who are one segment. We're talking about people who have a philosophical notion that they are above whatever laws you put in place.
Again, I'm going to be leaning towards the most, I guess, the most liberal policy possible when it comes to the right to keep and bear arms.
I believe in constitutional carry. I believe you should be able to carry, open, concealed, or otherwise. The Second Amendment is my permit. It is your permit.
Media has now picked up on a gun ban siege type mentality after a bunch of dreadful incidents by lunatics who accessed firearms and used them illegally.
Guns are not evil. They're inanimate objects. They can only perpetrate an evil act if an evil person or someone who's disturbed chooses to use them incorrectly. They can be used for plenty of good as well.
They've now put in a call for a semi-auto ban, which is actually not an assault weapon ban, but a semi-auto ban, which encompasses about 9/10 of my gun collection. They're back on a handgun ban. I noticed they've gotten off of handguns, and now they're on to high-capacity magazines and what they call assault weapons. That media-driven siege by our government will have at least 10,000 people out. They're rural people, blue-collar people, gun owners, shooting enthusiasts, people who've lobbied before on concealed carry. They're going to try to come out to Springfield on the 6th of March, and they're going to march to the Capitol and talk to their lawmakers again about that now we're the last state without concealed carry and that the courts have weighed in on concealed carry. So that the issue, I've never seen it as red hot as it's ever been in the last 2 months. My phone's rang nonstop for the last 2 months. If they're not involved now in the pro-gun struggle, they'll never be. But I look on iGold to be a huge success.
And it was a huge success. Despite Winter Storm Q hammering northern Illinois with a foot of snow, several thousand Illinoisans turned up to the capital city to lobby their lawmakers for the ability to carry firearms. Toby Weissman isn't a lunatic. She's a suburban Chicago citizen who told her state representative Kelly Cassidy that she wants the right to protect herself without fear of prosecution.
That I appreciate that she supports my rights as a lesbian and supports my right to marry my wife. But I'd like her to support this other aspect of my life as well. I'm her constituent. My wife is her constituent. We know other people in our area who would like to be able to defend themselves, their families, their homes, and the country if need be. And her stance would not allow us to do that. You know, I don't actually feel frustrated. I really knew coming down here that that's what I was going to get. But at least I had a chance to speak with her face to face and give her my view, tell her face to face. Because I've written her emails, and I've gotten emails back from her with the same response. But giving it to her face to face, I think, it definitely gives her more to think about.
Weissman says she was able to show Cassidy that not all of her constituents support more gun control. Instead, Representative Cassidy wanted to talk about lost and stolen provisions and other gun control measures.
This gun was designed in the 1930s. It's a classic. It has a telescopic sight, which some of the anti-gun liberals call a sniper rifle, but this is your quintessential bolt-action, 4-round, telescopically sighted, 30-06 or above caliber hunting rifle. You could hunt deer, you could hunt bear, you could hunt antelope, You could hunt small game, pests, and varmints. It would be very powerful on them, but you could hunt all the way down to rabbit or squirrel-sized animals if you want to. Coyote, fox, just about any game animal in North America can be taken with the 30-06. And this is what's used by what they call the traditional hunting rifle. Very finely made, handcrafted, fine wood, fine cut checkering. And this epitomizes auto-loading rifle. This is our current military firearm. This is a civilian version of the M16. It's a semi-automatic action. It taps gas off the barrel to load the action for every shot. Self-loading, but only one shot for each pull of the trigger, and its cartridges are contained in a magazine, sometimes called a clip, which inserts into this well of the rifle, and it fires one shot every time you pull the trigger until this magazine is empty, where you push that little button. This magazine comes out, another loaded magazine is inserted, and the rifle can be fired again, and that's repeated over and over for how much ammunition you have. This is pretty much the standard of what our Marines, Army, Navy are issued for military. This is their rifle, except for one big difference. Their rifle has a switch that goes on to auto. This only goes safe and semi-auto. This doesn't have the turn-on switch, which if you pull the trigger on full auto, this rifle would continuously shoot until the magazine is empty. This rifle does not do that. No civilian firearm does that. It's the difference between full auto and semi-auto. This is a semi-auto rifle, but it takes the same magazines, has the same sight radius, it shoots the same cartridge. Everything else is the same, except for that one major difference between military firearm and civilian firearm.
Military assault weapons should be in the hands of the military. And if you need a 100-round clip to put in your military weapon to go out and shoot a deer, maybe you ought to stick to fishing.
Everybody wants to preserve the right of people that want to use guns for sport, hunting, or target practice to have the right to do so. But that doesn't mean you have an assault weapon.
Come on. Don't need that for duck hunting. Well, it's not for duck hunting. It's when foreign bankers take over and want to rape us collectively.
This firearm here is older than I am. This gun is 62 years old. The gun would still sell, would still buy, still has desirable collector interest, and it's still a perfectly functional self-defense or target shooting pistol. So that's another deal. Guns last for 100 years. So that's why you see the secondary market, you see the buying and selling market. In fact, the firearms, these guns would outlast me. These guns outlasted my father, could outlast my grandfather. Guns last a long time. So where were we now? We talked about the transition from revolver to auto pistol. We talked about the transition from bolt-action rifle to semi-auto rifle. We'll talk about the only other type of firearm that's out there, and that's a pump-action shotgun. It carries the shells in a magazine underneath the barrel, and it's operated by pushing this lever back and forth. And that little sound that you just heard, the racking of the action of an 870 shotgun, it's called the ultimate fight stopper. It's called the ultimate pucker factor. It's called the ultimate, where the police do that, everybody freezes, nobody moves, everybody stops all their criminal activity because they realize, oh my gosh, he's got a shotgun. I've watched all the debates, I've watched all the laws come and go, I've watched major bans and restrictions come and go, I've seen all kinds of politicians come and go, watched a lot of them go to prison. And of course, now the other thing that was used by the shooter, which again is a criminal, and I hate to dwell on criminals, but they seem to be the drivers of new legislation. The criminal that tried to assassinate Gabby Giffords in Arizona did not have a standard capacity magazine for his Glock handgun of 15 rounds. He had what's called an extra length capacity, and this is the 33-round magazine. So you see that you've now more than doubled your firepower. This is an enthusiast gun. It's a professional grade gun. If guys just want to practice at the range and they just want to stand there and shoot 33 rounds without having to reload, this is their magazine of choice. Unfortunately, the criminals and the gangbangers have glommed onto this to say, well, I want the most firepower I can have to further my criminal career. So the law-abiding guy gets caught up in this desire now to ban, they call this a high-capacity magazine.
100-round magazine clip. Why in the world does anyone other than someone in the military need that? I don't see a legitimate sporting or hunting purpose to an assault rifle or to a 100-round clip.
What is the downside of saying you can have clips with only 10 rounds in it? What does that violate? Hunting sportsmanship. If you need more than 10 rounds to hunt, and some argue they hunt with that many rounds, you shouldn't be out there hunting. You can't get the deer in 3 shots. You shouldn't be hunting. You're an embarrassment.
I can't get into that political debate because we'd be here all day, but that's the magazine that fits this pistol. It could take either one. In fact, this pistol could take a magazine that only holds 7 rounds. So I don't know what you're wanting to call full capacity or high capacity or extra capacity. All I know is that automatic pistols take a detachable magazine. I guess conceivably, if you wanted to go through the hassle, you could make a magazine that was, this long. I guess you could make a 200-round magazine. I don't know. It would weigh 25 pounds. It would be impossible to carry around. It would be impossible to shoot with. It changes the dynamics of your gun. It changes the concealability of your gun. You could not conceal a gun with such a 3-foot magazine as easily as you could this pistol here, which is eminently practical, eminently concealable, and eminently used by all kinds of law-abiding people. So with a magazine that sticks out that far, that's clearly, it's an issue that I can't solve right here today, but
Again, to reset, Illinois doesn't even let citizens do in public what Tom's doing in the comfort of his well-armed basement. Illinois has a ban on concealed firearms outside the home.
I don't see a legitimate sporting or hunting purpose to an assault rifle or to a 100-round clip. I just don't see it.
Does the Second Amendment have anything to do with hunting?
Of course it does, and read the opinion. And the U.S. Supreme Court was clear in their opinion. Congress still retains the right to monitor and to regulate Second Amendment usage.
The Second Amendment, what's your understanding of it? Because we always hear hunting and sportsmanship and all this stuff. In your opinion, what does the Second Amendment stand for?
I think it stands for the individual right to keep and bear arms.
For what reason?
I think for what reason?
You have a right to use your own skills and ability to defend yourself.
I think it was there to put in a check to protect the other rights that we have. I think it was put there to make sure that the people always have the means to defend our nation.
Well, that used to be non-firearms because the firearms hadn't been invented yet. With the invention of gunpowder, they developed firearms that are brilliantly used when they're used as designed. They're also very powerful and can be misused.
It's pretty simple, and I think they wrote it that way for a reason. It gives citizens the right to protect themselves and own firearms.
We don't live in a state where it's lords and serfs. That's not what it is. And we're not going to have political hacks making decisions about whether or not people have the right to defend themselves.
So that's what we're left with. The Second Amendment and our founding fathers who threw off a tyrant who tried to disarm them so that he could govern them horribly, control them and enslave them. They said, we're going to keep our firearms because that keeps us free. It gives us a forceful means. Like Mao said, power flows from the barrel of a gun. He's absolutely correct. It certainly does. Whether it flows for good or evil depends on the owner. But the Second Amendment was enshrined in our country's founding document to say, you can, if you don't mess up and you obey our laws, you can have a firearm. And you can use it to defend yourself, to get food on the table, for pleasurable pastime, whatever you desire. That's your right as an American citizen, along with the right to a jury trial, the right to a lawyer, the right to free speech, the right to talk about, that your government is messing up. Those rights are fundamental.
It's pretty broad. Now, they did limit it. I mean, I don't think you can own a bazooka or a Sherman tank. But, of course, rifles, shotguns, things of this nature, any handgun, doesn't matter the capacity of the clip. And that's pretty much my definition.
Illinoisans can't even legally bear arms, regardless of whether there's a ban on extended magazines, semi-autos, or wheel guns. Illinois is a gun-free zone.
Do you think that, based on the ruling, is there any effect on people who have been previously prosecuted and convicted or sentenced under the current unlawful use of weapons?
Yes, I think this body should very strongly consider going back and looking at the expungement statute, because I think those people who are convicted under a now unconstitutional statute certainly have a right to redress those wrongful convictions. I think we would be doing a great injustice to all those people who had a FOID card but were trying to protect themselves, who got a felony conviction, much less a misdemeanor conviction, and sit there and say that they have to carry that mark for the rest of their life.
Meet Donnell Jackson, as represented by Daniel Knoll.
Well, according to the police report, on December 11, 2011, my client was arrested early in the morning for having a pistol on him. He had a valid void card on him. He was found out in the street near his house. It's our understanding, based upon the police report, that there was a shooting the night before, and the Springfield Police Department was patrolling the area looking for people who were shooting, and that's about as far as I can get into it right now.
Was your client charged with anything else that night?
No, the only charge against him is for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, which we still believe is an unconstitutional law. Today, the judge heard our motion to dismiss. We were asking the court to declare the Illinois' ban on concealed carry, known as the aggravated unlawful use of a weapon statute, unconstitutional. The judge denied to do that today. Any court in Illinois can declare a law unconstitutional. Given the ruling in Moore v. Madigan, that is what we were asking this court to do, and Judge Graves declined to do so. It appears that her position was to see what the Illinois legislature crafts for a new law and to see where we sit on middle of June after presumably that will be done. Where we're going from here is we're going to be filing a motion to suppress, challenging the probable cause for our client's arrest. The case is now set for the middle of June for trial.
The mandate issues June 9th. Subscribe to Bishop On Air for more of the Gun Free Zone series.